Hello and welcome to Probeline, a production of GrassRoots Community Network. We thank our generous and community-minded sponsor, A&B Bank of Aspen, for their support to help make this happen. Probeline provides you the opportunity to get to know candidates for city council and mayor who are running in the March election, and they want to represent you. So our guest this episode is Tyler Wilkinson-Ray.
Yep.
Did I get through that okay?
Yeah, you got it right.
All right.
I can blame my parents for the hyphen.
Welcome, Tyler.
Yeah. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
So let me start with a question of, I'm curious about, what does representation mean to you?
What is representation? It's the power of democracy. I think to run, particularly I think in small town politics, it's not feasible for everyone to have the background and to weigh in. We can't do a ballot referendum on every single decision. So representation, I think, is we pick people who we trust to spend the time to look into all those issues on our behalf and make those decisions on behalf of the community. Because everyone's busy and it's just not feasible for everyone to read all the studies, all the city attorney briefs, and be as educated as someone needs to be to make these decisions. So we pick 5 people to do that for the town, and then every couple of years we see if we think they're doing a good job or not.
Yeah. And as a representative, how do you then, make the decision? How do you represent?
I think it's a mixture of communicating with the community. That's why, I think small town governance is way more. It's more, I think, authentic and responsive than what we get in Washington, where the elected representatives are so distant from the people they represent. Here in Aspen, it's gondola rides, it's the grocery store, it's we get to interact with people. Yes, sometimes on issues like the entrance, we need to poll and really get good data on where people stand. But I think you can get a pretty good sense of where the community stands. And then I also think there is another level of if you take the time to really understand an issue, is trusting that your good judgment, what you think is the right way forward, is the right way forward, even if it might be a slightly unpopular opinion. So it's a balance. Like if the community is clearly in one direction, and even if you think it might not be a great idea, I think you need to listen to the community. But I also think leadership is taking the time to really understand issues, look at the long view, and do what you think is right for the community.
Yeah,
even if it might make a couple people mad.
Popular.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So.
All right. We have a series of questions.
Let's get in here.
I'll deal.
Question bingo.
And you pick where we start.
Okay. I'm gonna go in the back middle here.
All right.
No. You read it for me?
I read it.
Okay.
Hey, come on, I gotta have something to do. Yeah. Hey, why did you come to Aspen?
Why did I come to Aspen? I originally, actually, it's kind of a funny story. I originally moved to Telluride with a girlfriend from Vermont, and we flipped a coin. She wanted to move to Aspen. I wanted to move to Telluride. I have some family there. We ended up in Telluride. Things didn't work out. She's still in Telluride, and I came to Aspen. So we ended up swapping. My brother was here, and so when I was looking to move on from Telluride, find a little less remote place, but still in the mountains, I briefly went to California, went to Tahoe, and decided Tahoe was not a mountain town. You still sat in traffic every day. And so, to me, mountain towns, you can walk to the ski area. Yeah. So came to Aspen for a winter, was supposed to follow my career, which is in film and photo, which LA, which is, the epicenter. Came for one winter, and, I would tell people within a month of being in Aspen, I had more friends here than I had after 4 years in Telluride. It was just such a welcoming community. People wanted you to love Aspen. Whereas I think a lot of other mountain towns, it's kind of like you got to tough it out until you're local. You got to be here long enough. Whereas everyone in Aspen, they wanted you to, know that this is the best ski town, mountain town in America. And I've really kind of tried to adopt that where when people come, I try to help them find housing and, make sure everyone's, makes there's a soft landing here. And converted a lot of people to stay. So, yeah, came for a winter like many people, and now I'm stuck here.
Stuck here or stay here? Yeah.
Staying here for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We'll go with this guy.
All right. Good one. What do you think sets a successful person apart?
What sets a successful person apart? Wow, that is a good but very open-ended question. I think drive is a big one. There's always the if there's the how I built this podcast, it's on radio. You always ask, was it luck or hard work? And I think you have to kind of answer it's both. Success is like when those opportunities arise, taking advantage of them. Sometimes it's not going to work out, and then there's a little bit of luck mixed in there. So opportunity and hard work, and a little bit of being in the right place at the right time. So
and that's professional success. There's all kinds of different. It is an open-ended question. All kinds of different successes.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you're. The other classic answer I think from a lot of those successful business people are like they sacrificed family, and lifestyle so they could make a bunch of money, and was it worth it in the end? So it depends where your metrics are. If it's success as being a successful business owner or elected official, can also take away from being a successful spouse, parent, community member. So there's a lot of ways you could measure it.
Well, before we were on air, you mentioned working in a suit and realizing that wasn't the way to go.
Way more. Yeah, and I loved working in the State House in Vermont, but I couldn't turn down the opportunity to try to pursue my passion, which is film and photo. So gave it a shot. I told them I asked if I could give it 2 years, and if it didn't work out, if I could get my old job back, and they said yes. So I had that as a safety.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it's been
11. Yeah, they said yes, but you're not coming back. And I was like, okay. I appreciate the offer, though.
What producing films and producing art is fascinating to me, and the idea of you have art that you want to produce, but there's the client.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about
I wish
that.
I could just spend my whole day making like documentary films and art-driven pieces, but the reality is, you get paid to make content that people will pay you for, that clients want. So it's a mix. Sometimes it's you definitely have projects where it's just they want something, you think it's kind of boring, but that's what they're paying you for, and you can't pay rent with art necessarily. So but oftentimes I think in the outdoor space in particular, it's a mix. They want something beautiful. They want to hear a good story. A lot of our clients are thinking of themselves these days as like little mini TV stations. They're trying to produce, I think Patagonia is the classic example, particularly with their like environmental filmmaking. They're trying to produce short films and content that their viewers are going to be interested in and identify with. And that's how you, in a competitive marketplace where there's a lot of companies making good jackets, people buy the jacket that they identify with. So these companies have gotten much better at creating curated content that sells an identity.
Right, that kind of issue marketing.
Yeah, so that's been a fun wave to ride of this branded storytelling, branded doc, where you're creating. Yes, it's for a brand, but it's it's not just here. Look at this zipper and look how waterproof this is. They're really telling interesting stories. So there's a hybrid there, but at the end of the day, it's the client's got to like it. So and we definitely. We do take here's the zipper shoot sometimes because that's how you make a living in a tough marketplace.
But there's got to be a visual challenge of I got to make this zipper look good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's some art at that level.
Oh yeah, and particularly doing the outdoor media side of things, that could be a lot of work. Could be a lot of lugging camera gear up to the top of a peak, and waiting until, either getting up in the dark or waiting until the sunset and then getting out in the dark. And so, yeah, it could be a lot of work.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun. Yeah. Get to play in the mountains a lot. Yeah. Okay. We'll go with this guy.
All right. What's the one thing you wish you knew earlier in your career?
Okay. What would I wish I had known? I mean, I wish I had known film earlier. I wish I pursued it earlier. I think I think one thing you think when you're just coming out of college is that everyone has all their stuff together, and
right.
But everyone's kind of
you don't,
and you don't, but like you're underprepared, and I think when you go into your first job, you think you're inadequate, and I think knowing that everyone has strengths and weaknesses, everyone's going through a journey, and like having that confidence, I think would have been helpful when I was straight out of college, but everyone's constantly, hopefully on a journey to get better and better at their job.
Right.
And I think knowing that when you're young, that having that confidence that you deserve to be there is a big one that I think I wish I had known.
Yeah, there is something, being able to relax a little bit about what you're doing and show that
Yep.
you're not perfect.
Yep. Totally.
Comes
Yeah, that
along
honesty.
from that maturity.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and I think there's also the willingness to look at, that you don't have to go into a set career path, that you can kind of navigate your way through. And, I started working in public policy, became a filmmaker, and, maybe I'll be doing something totally different in 10 years. That, like, you don't have to go get that manufacturing or corporate job and do that until you retire. That, there's a lot of fun and kind of trying to reinvent your own path and way forward. I don't think my dad was a videographer for IBM, but he made, corporate press release videos, and I just thought it seemed really boring. So I never considered, going more the outdoor National Geographic route of like, yeah, you can invent a career for yourself if you're willing to get a little creative and, get paid to go ski in Antarctica or something. It's possible. So it took me a couple of years to figure it out, but eventually did.
I'm curious what attracted you to the original public policy part.
That's always been kind of an interest of mine. In fact, I'd say the film and photo stuff came much later. I was a global studies major in college, which is basically anthropology, human geography, and political science. So I've always been kind of interested in politics, was involved in student government in college, in high school even. It's always been a kind of a fascinating, I think the one thing I liked about doing public policy was the ability to make a tangible difference. It's can be one of my frustrations with doing films. You can make a film about a topic, it might not move the needle at all. You're hoping to educate someone on, we do a lot of environmental documentary work, and you're hoping to move the needle by educating people. But one of the great things about public policy is you pass a law or a bill, that can make a tangible difference for people. And I just like there's, it sounds oxymoronic, but there's a creative aspect of public policy. The easy problems have been solved. The ones that are left to government are the really hard ones. And so thinking about creative ways to solve old problems, I think, is a really fascinating intellectual endeavor. Because all the easy ones are, what we have at Aspen, or, well, I guess there might be some easier ones in Washington if you could ever get them approved. But, it's particularly in small town issues, there's never like an easy solution. It's always, whether it's budget or trade-offs, it's always a challenge, and a lot of different opinions of people who, and you live next to,
Right.
So I find that aspect to be really interesting. It's always been something I've been interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Okay. Here we go. Well, we'll just go with that one.
All right. So, what role has luck played in your life?
I think, I've had some very lucky moments. I was very lucky to get the first job I wanted out of college. I didn't know that I had already been effectively given the job when I showed up to the interview.
How did you manage that?
It was with a government affairs firm. I had helped out on a campaign of a candidate who never goes to the public affairs firm and makes a suggestion. He's very distant from, very wants to keep his neutrality and separation from the firms. And I guess he had made a phone call to the firm saying that was a good candidate, and they said, well, you'd never get a call from this politician saying that we should look at this kid. So they didn't tell me until after that. They're like, if you showed up on time, you already had the job. So that was, I think lucky. My film career, I've had some very lucky breaks. I was very lucky that the second film I ever made got picked up by, went to Mountain Film in Banff, and Nat Geo picked it up on their service. So that was, great to get into that National Geographic community right away. And then got lucky again where that film I had done for Columbia Sportswear and didn't hear anything. I had a meeting with them and they said, how is going to Costa Rica and Switzerland and Japan sound? I was like, that sounds amazing. They wouldn't reply. Never heard an email back from them for 6 months, and then all of a sudden they had this multi-year campaign, and again, didn't know that I was the only bid that they had asked for. So I, put in a number that I thought was going to make it worthwhile, and didn't think I was going to get it, and I got it, and I got to spend 2 years doing most of Columbia's international shootings, traveling around the world, with a couple of product testers testing out their gear, making films about it, and making what's hard to come by, which was an agency salary. So that was, again, just I think it was 4 months after leaving my law firm job, and I was going to give it 2 years to see if I could make it in film, getting the backing of a company that's the size of North Face and Patagonia combined, and doing all their stuff. So that was a huge break, and paid for me to get a bunch of the gear that I still use today, and kind of get through that real rocky part of building up that client list.
Yeah.
And then same thing. I think coming to Aspen was a luck. I came for a winter just to hang out with my brother, and then luckily he ended up here, and and then Aspen has been a great location, both just lifestyle and community wise, but also career wise. It's one of the few mountain towns where there's actual production work going on, so I can keep busy here, particularly during and post COVID, as the outdoor industry and bike industry in particular is really having a hard time post COVID. This community economy is still thriving, so that's been a great safety net compared to some of my friends who live in big cities and rely on a handful of brands like say REI or Specialized that are just not. They just basically shut down their film programs because of post-COVID recession for them. So Aspen's been another kind of lucky endeavor for me to end up here, and just how thriving this economy is and the amount of production work that does go on here.
That's amazing. A lot of luck, but it sounds like you've created some of this luck.
It's like going back to that, how I built this line of, do you credit your success to luck or hard work? And it's got to be a combination of both.
Yeah.
So.
Great.
Okay. Let's go for, you read it.
So how do you deal with uncertainty?
That is a good question. I have a lot of that in, running a small business in this town, one that's reliant on both the local and national economy. A lot of our work comes from marketing departments, and if there's a recession or the business isn't doing well, the first thing that gets cut is marketing. So I have a lot of uncertainty in my life. I always say I'm stressed because I have a deadline by the end of the week, and stressed because I have nothing booked a month out. So that's just the life of a freelancer. So I think I'm fairly accustomed to it at this point. When you're first starting out, you one client, you lose a client because the marketing director quit and a new person came in. They have their video team they like to work with. So all of a sudden, your big client is, they want to go work with their college buddy or whatever. So that's always nerve-wracking when you first start. But I think at this point, I'm just kind of comfortable with the uncertainty of, being busy but not knowing what's coming, and I guess I'm just kind of used to it at this point. You just, you kind of get used to it.
Yeah, there's the uncertainty of, am I doing the right thing? How should I act in this situation?
Yep.
And I think when you're representing, a group of people, there's this fair amount of that kind of uncertainty in it. And how...
Yeah, and I'd say even this, city council run is involved a lot of uncertainty. How's it going to go? When last time I worked in the political space was in my home state of Vermont, where it's very small. All the players. You know it very well. And here I'm fairly relatively new to this town. I've only been here 6.5 years. There's a lot I don't know about Aspen. I've been doing a lot of catch up on reading.
Yeah.
So it's putting your name out there into the community. People are very passionate about issues in this town. Friends, like close friends who you might not agree with. So there's a lot of uncertainty about putting your hat in the ring for local office.
In the course of running for office, you've gotten to know the community. You know it as a resident, and now you're beginning to know it as someone who people look at you.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about this?
Yeah.
What has that process been like of learning issues in Aspen?
Yeah, it's been good. I think
not that we have any issues.
No, definitely not.
Yeah,
it's been interesting to hear just the I come from, and I think understand the issues facing younger workers in this town and the struggles of maintaining community and housing and affordability and that stuff. And then, I don't have kids, so, that's been a good one for me to learn about the childcare challenges here. And, next week we're going to go talk to the Education Foundation, learning about the school district here, things that I don't have firsthand experience with because I don't have kids. But, we'll not in the not too distant future. So, learning about just the different perspectives of, the people in different parts of life, and their, obviously housing's still an issue with the retired community, and how do we also move housing on to workers? So it's it's been really interesting. A lot of people have reached out to to have coffee and meet and talk about various issues. So it's been really fun to get kind of a different perspective for people who are in different parts of life in this town, which I don't get to interact with as much.
Any real surprises in there that?
I wouldn't say there's been surprises. There's been just getting into the weeds on some of these. Like I said before, like there's no easy solutions to a lot of this stuff. If there were, we would have solved them already. That's like the childcare one is a really interesting one to get into. The one I wasn't surprising, but was perhaps more divisive than I expected was the entrance. People are very, very adamant about their opinion on it, and are not necessarily interested in hearing other points of view. So that's one where I think the passion level meter was a little higher than I expected. I knew it was going to be a big issue in the election, but that's definitely one that people see it in a very black and white way on both sides.
Yeah,
and I don't see it quite as black and white. So that's been one of the more interesting ones. I'm ready for us to move on from that one.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. Okay, go for this one.
Okay. So, Tyler, tell me about your most recent humbling experience.
Wow, my Most recent humbling experience. I feel like I get humbled on the mountain almost every time I go out now. I'm trying to think of a better one that's not.
How so?
Oh, just, you know, I grew up ski racing. You're a pretty competent skier. And as you get older, you're just not quite as quick as you used to be. So and I spend a lot of time in the mountains with really high elite level skiers. So I'm often humbled by just trying to get down with a camera pack behind them.
Yeah.
So that's, as you get older, as an outdoor filmmaker, I have to, a blown out knee is a 6 month off the job.
Right.
Impact. So I have to be very careful to not get injured. I would say just this morning, skinning up to Bonnie's was humbling. I got passed by a couple people and they just took off. So that was humbling this morning. Just, okay, I gotta get back on the grind. I'm signed up for Power of Four, and just between a really busy film season around the holidays, the election, this is the least I've trained for it. So I think that's going to be my next humbling experience. Is going to be doing Power of Four with very little training. So, but Power of Four is always humbling for me.
Yeah, you've done it several times, or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done it 3 times. Last year I had COVID, or was recovering from like long COVID. Still had a bunch of stuff in my lungs, so I bailed after the bowl, and so that was the first time I haven't finished it. But I've done it 2 other times where we finished it. I just try to finish. I'm not trying to go fast.
Yeah.
Just stay ahead of the cutoffs, and But it's a good thing to drop into the middle of your winter. It keeps you healthy. So, and then after Power 4, I don't want to see my skins again for a month or so.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
So, I don't have a question on that. Let's try this one.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
We're down to the last question. This is it's a somewhat inarticulate one, so
Okay.
bear with me. I wrote it. I take credit for the inarticulate. But how do you, as a public servant, you've been on boards before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Weave or separate this public and private life in a small town.
You try to. I don't know if you can. I think that was one of my big hesitations for running was, would there be, potential impact on my business? I work for a lot of local businesses. If I voted on an issue that went against, a local hotel or developer or, another client, would that impact my future work with them? So that was a big concern of mine. A lot of my income comes from locally based productions. And then just on a social level, like I was saying with the bridge, people are very passionate about both sides. I have friends on both sides who have very strong opinions, and it's not a matter of debate. It's black and white, common sense solution for both sides. So that's been an interesting one to hear both sides and try to have discussions, and sometimes it's not always what people want to have. So I think fundamentally you have to have the conviction to do what you think is right. Take the time to listen to both sides, and then and make sure you're educated on the topic and understand the implications, and then you have to make those decisions. But I don't think you really can fully separate public service and personal life in a small town. It's too, because effectively your decisions affect people's personal lives. So there isn't really, that's what policy is. You're making decisions that are affecting the whole town's personal lives. So I don't really think you can separate them. I think you got to look at the human element and personal element of all the decisions.
Yeah, there's a lot of exposure there.
Sure.
You know, that you end up just putting yourself into that blender of
Yep.
what to do. And,
Yep.
and it can be all consuming.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, you know, the reality is and I go back to the entrance because I think that's the most vivid one right now of, you know, you have people who like live by where the straight shot would go, who don't want a highway, you know, coming through their front yard, and that's very relatable, you know. And then you have people who rely on the commuter traffic, you know, who, you know, we have people sitting in cars for hours and hours to get to work. So, you know, the reality is like most of these are not like right or wrong decisions. They're just people are impacted by decisions in different ways. You know, there's people who lost their housing because of the influence of Airbnb, or lost housing because the school district bought up their housing. You know, and then you know, there's people trying to run businesses who need housing for their employees. So people get impacted by, you know, or people who run, you know, real estate agents who run Airbnb. That's their business. So like taxes on those are going to, you know, there's it's not necessarily there's right or wrong answers. There's just decisions have different impacts on different people, and of course, some people are harmed or hurt by other ones. And so it's the sausage is not a clean process.
You're right. And thank you. We're out of time.
Yep.
Tyler, I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's great.
It's been a pleasure.
Good questions. I enjoyed it.
Thanks. And that concludes this episode of Probeline, production of GrassRoots Community Network. You can support GrassRoots by donating online, volunteering, or producing a show. Thank you all for tuning in. Know Aspen, watch GrassRoots.